St. Lucia reaffirms its sacred commitment to the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. The principles of the sovereign equality of states, non-intervention and non-interference in the internal affairs of states, as well as the peaceful coexistence among nations, remain the tenets of this institution. Mr. President, in essence, we, the peoples of the United Nations, committed to live as good neighbors. St. Lucia joins with the great majority of the membership of the United Nations and reiterates its support for the resolution which continues to call for the end to the economic, commercial, and financial embargo imposed by the United States of America against Cuba. The application of unilateral measures applied in an extraterritorial manner are counter to the spirit of the United Nations Charter. Such measures are adverse to the right to development, as recognized by the General Assembly in numerous resolutions, and the deleterious effects and impact of unilateral coercive measures on the enjoyment of human rights on the society, particularly the day-to-day lives of the people of Cuba, cannot be overstated. This long-standing 62-year-old unlawful economic, commercial, and financial embargo imposed by the United States against Cuba has been out of step with the principles for far too long. St. Lucia's continued apprehension over the continuation of the embargo against our fellow Caribbean state was most recently echoed by the heads of government of the Caribbean community when they expressed grave concern about the deteriorating humanitarian situation resulting from the embargo wrongfully imposed on the people of Cuba. The impact of the embargo is wide-ranging. It affects and restricts access to foreign currency, inputs, raw materials, fuels, machinery, fertilizers, chemical products, technologies, and the imposition of penalties on shipping companies that would otherwise service Cuba. The consequences are real and far-reaching, including the reduction in food production. The recent collapse of Cuba's national grid highlights the impact of these limitations place on the effective functioning of the country. Mr. President, Cuba is also no less impacted by climate change. As a fellow small island developing state, St. Lucia is well aware of the ongoing impact of storms and hurricanes. We can only imagine the compounded complexities of the recent passage of Hurricane Oscar on the lives of the people of Cuba. CARICOM heads of government have agreed to provide material support to assist Cuba in the recovery phase, just as Cuba has assisted us in the past in health sector, the education sector, and so much more. It is our humanitarian duty to respond when one of our Caribbean family requires it. Mr. President, St. Lucia echoes CARICOM in considering the U.S. State Department's ongoing inclusion of Cuba on its list of state sponsors of terrorism as wrong and offensive. We join the call for Cuba to be removed from the list of countries deemed to be state sponsors of terrorism. Mr. President, leaving no one behind is what gives meaning to our 2030 agenda for sustainable development. The unselfish assistance of Cuba through cooperation and direct support to the Caribbean and the wider world is its demonstration of its own commitment to advancing our agenda for development. Cuba has been a good neighbor. We, in turn, must embrace Cuba and truly leave no one behind. St. Lucia expresses the hope that the present resolution on this question is respected and the will of the overwhelming majority of the nations of the world. The indomitable spirit of the Cuban people remains an inspiration, and we reaffirm our sincere call to end this embargo. St. Lucia joins in expressing our full solidarity with the government and people of Cuba. Thank you, Mr. President.